She thought leaving the city would help her forget. The noise, the heartbreak, the life that no longer felt like hers. So she packed her bags and returned to Maplewood, the quiet town she once called home. But the past has a funny way of catching up. Because the first person she sees isn't a neighbor or an old friend. It's him, the boy who broke her heart all those years ago. Now a man. And suddenly the heartbreak she ran from doesn't feel so distant. Because sometimes, coming home means facing what you never truly left behind. If you asked Emily Harper 6 months ago where she saw herself by summer, she would have smiled confidently and said, "Right where I am." A successful interior designer in New York City, she had a sleek apartment in Manhattan, a loyal client list, and a long-term relationship that, on the surface, looked like it was heading toward forever. But forever shattered with a single late-night confession. Her partner of 7 years had been unfaithful, repeatedly. And suddenly, everything she'd worked for, built around, and believed in, crumbled. The city, once vibrant and full of promise, now felt like a cage made of broken dreams and painful memories. So she left. With nothing but 2 suitcases, a broken heart, and the kind of exhaustion that sleep couldn't fix, Emily drove back to Maplewood, a sleepy little town nestled among quiet hills and rustling trees. It had been 12 years since she left, 12 years of chasing ambitions and running from everything this place reminded her of. She hadn't planned to stay long. A few months, she told herself. Long enough to get her childhood home repaired after the spring storm had torn through the roof and left parts of it unlivable. Long enough to clear her head, maybe breathe for the first time in what felt like forever. But the thing about small towns? They remember you. And they have a way of holding mirrors up to everything you thought you left behind. She wasn't prepared for Luke Bennett. The boy she once loved had become a man who looked familiar and foreign all at once. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a quiet steadiness in the way he carried himself. The same deep-set eyes. The same way of tilting his head when he was about to say something honest. Emily hadn't seen him since the day he broke her heart, right before she left for college. One day they were inseparable, dreaming up a future with wildflowers and warm porches. The next, he was gone. No letter, no call. Just a silence so sharp it cut deeper than any words could have. Now, he was the carpenter hired to repair her old house. Luke had never left Maplewood. Life had kept him here. After high school, he took over his father's woodshop and slowly built a modest business restoring old homes and crafting handmade furniture. But his world shifted the day his older sister died in a car accident, leaving behind her 6-year-old son, Eli. Luke didn't hesitate. He stepped up, took in Eli, moved his younger sister back home, and quietly became the rock his family needed. He didn't talk about his past much. Most people in town only knew the present version of him, the one who kept his head down, worked with his hands, and raised a boy like he was his own. Emily never expected to see Luke again, let alone work with him. Their reunion was awkward at best and painfully tender at worst. One look, and the years between them vanished. Not because the pain disappeared, but because it never really left. It simply waited, buried beneath time and distance, waiting for a moment like this to resurface. She tried to stay detached, professional, but Maplewood had a way of softening her edges. The long walks through tree-lined streets, the scent of pine and rain after a storm, the quiet moments with Eli, who had the same mischievous smile Luke used to wear. Slowly, without meaning to, Emily found herself drawn back into a world she thought she'd outgrown, and to a man she thought she'd stopped loving. But the past doesn't let go so easily, and some stories, no matter how long they're left unfinished, demand to be told again. Emily hadn't expected to see him, of all people. When she called the local contractor to fix the storm damage to her childhood home, she was focused on the roof, the creaking porch steps, and the plumbing that had long since given up. She wasn't thinking about the past, or Luke Bennett. But the moment she opened the front door and saw him standing there, hammer in hand and sunlight outlining his frame, time folded in on itself. Luke didn't say much at first, just nodded slightly, his eyes scanning hers as if searching for something familiar, something that might still remain after all these years. Emily's throat tightened. He looked older, of course, broader shoulders, a bit more stubble, a quiet gravity that hadn't been there before. But the eyes, they were the same, and they hit her like a memory she wasn't ready to feel. "I didn't know it was you," she said, the words falling out before she could stop them. "I figured," he replied softly. "I almost turned the job down. Almost." But he hadn't, and now, here they were, 12 years, one broken heart, and 1,000 unspoken words later, trying to navigate a renovation that felt more personal than professional. The first few days were stiff. Awkward silences filled the space between measurements and sawdust. They rarely made eye contact. When they spoke, it was brief, clipped, like they were both afraid that saying too much might open old wounds they'd each carefully buried. But the house had other plans. One creaky floorboard after another forced them into small, shared spaces, under stairwells, behind walls, around the same dining table where Emily once did her homework as a teenager. It was impossible not to remember the nights Luke used to sneak through the back door, how they'd sit under the kitchen window dreaming about everything they thought they'd become. Now, their dreams felt like fragments scattered in the dust. They swept up together. They clashed, frequently. Emily wanted modern, minimal, clean lines. Luke believed in preserving character, in letting old things speak. They bickered over tiles, over light fixtures, over whether or not to knock down the sunroom wall. Sometimes it felt like arguing was the only thing keeping them from acknowledging the truth, that the spark between them never really died. Still, there were cracks in the tension, and through those cracks, something softer began to grow. It was in the way Luke quietly replaced the broken doorknob on her childhood bedroom without being asked, or how Emily brought him coffee the way he used to like it. 2 sugars, no cream, even though she pretended not to remember. They started laughing again. Small, hesitant chuckles that turned into real laughter when Emily tripped over a paint can, or when Luke accidentally glued his shirt sleeve to the cabinet door. They fell into a rhythm, like 2 people who had once been in sync and were slowly, unconsciously finding the beat again. One afternoon, while measuring the living room wall, their hands brushed, brief, accidental, electric. Emily pulled back, first, but not before her eyes met his. And for a second, everything stilled. The years, the hurt, the unspoken questions, they all waited at the edge of that moment. "You never told me why," she whispered. It wasn't a demand, just a quiet ache. Luke looked at her, guilt and sorrow flickering across his face. "I was scared," he said. "You had a future so much bigger than this town, bigger than me. I thought letting you go was the right thing." Emily looked away, blinking fast. "You didn't let me go. You just disappeared." The silence that followed wasn't cruel. It was heavy with everything they'd left unsaid. But beneath the pain, something real lingered. Something they couldn't shake off, no matter how hard they tried. They were no longer the teenagers they once were. Life had changed them, shaped them, scarred them. But the pull between them, that quiet, stubborn connection, was still there. Alive in stolen glances, in familiar routines, in the way their hearts seemed to beat a little faster whenever the other walked into the room. It was complicated. It was messy. But it was undeniable. And as the house slowly came back to life, so did something between them. Unfinished, unresolved, but no longer avoidable. Emily wasn't sure what she was looking for when she wandered into the attic of her childhood home, but she knew it had to be something. The house was almost fully restored. Walls repainted, floors redone, the roof fixed. But there was one part of the house she hadn't tackled yet: the attic. The place where her memories were tucked away in dusty boxes and forgotten corners. She had avoided it for days, not ready to face the remnants of her past. But today, something pulled her up there. The air was musty. The beams creaked underfoot as she stepped carefully through piles of old clothes and forgotten trinkets. Then, beneath a pile of her mother's old photo albums, she found a small, weathered envelope. Its edges were frayed, the handwriting on the front unmistakable. Luke Bennett. Her heart stopped. She didn't have to open it to know what it was. She knew Luke had never explained why he'd disappeared all those years ago. He hadn't even sent her a text. No closure. No goodbyes. But this was different. She could feel it in the weight of the paper in her hands. With trembling fingers, she carefully peeled open the envelope. Inside was a letter, dated the summer before she left for college. The words were raw, messy in their honesty. Luke had written it, but he never sent it. "Emily, I can't do this. I can't watch you leave and not have a place in your life anymore. But there's something you need to know. Something that might change everything. Your dad. He's made it clear that I'm not good enough for you, that I'll ruin your future. He's threatened to tear apart your dreams if I'm still in your life. He says I'm too ordinary, too small town, too nothing. I can't be the one to stand in the way of your future. I need to let you go." Emily's hand shook as she read the final words. Her mind raced with confusion and hurt. Why hadn't he told her? Why hadn't he explained? That day? She could feel her breath quicken, the knot in her stomach tightening as the weight of the truth hit her. She needed answers. It wasn't until later that evening, when the house was quiet and the sun dipped low, casting long shadows over the walls, that Emily confronted him. They were standing by the freshly finished kitchen counter, both of them with their backs to the other as they worked on small repairs. The silence between them had never felt heavier. "Luke," Emily said, her voice low but steady. "Why didn't you ever send me that letter? Why did you leave like that?" Luke stopped mid-action, his back stiffening. He turned, his face shadowed with pain, the weight of years of regret pressing down on him. "I couldn't," he said quietly, his voice strained. "I never had a choice. Your dad. He told me if I stayed, he would ruin your future. He said I wasn't good enough for you, that you deserved someone better, someone with more money, more ambition. And I believed him. I believed that if I didn't let you go, I'd hold you back from everything you were meant to do." Emily stood frozen, the truth crashing down around her. All these years, all the pain she'd carried, had been based on a lie. It wasn't her fault. She wasn't the one who'd been abandoned. She had never known that her father had been the one to push Luke away, that he had made the decision for both of them, out of fear, out of some misguided sense of what Emily should have. "You didn't tell me," Emily whispered, a tear slipping down her cheek. You never gave me the chance to choose. Luke's face softened with regret. I know. I was selfish. I thought I was protecting you. But I wasn't. I was just afraid. Afraid that I wasn't enough for you. That I never could be. The room felt colder as the truth hung between them, the air thick with everything they hadn't said over the years. Emily felt a pang of sorrow for the boy she had loved so deeply, and for herself, the girl who had waited, who had kept holding onto a memory of someone who had never had a chance. But the truth also cut deeply. It wasn't just anger or betrayal she felt. It was something far more complicated. She felt lost. All these years, she had built a life without ever understanding why Luke had left her. Now, all of it seemed empty, as though a part of her had been missing all along. I didn't want to hurt you, Luke continued softly. But I see now. Maybe I hurt us both by leaving. Emily wiped her tears, trying to steady her breath. You did. But maybe I hurt myself too by not asking why. For a moment, they stood there, suspended in the gravity of everything that had been left unsaid. The quiet ache between them lingered, raw but honest, as they both realized that some wounds didn't heal with time. Some wounds needed to be shared, with truth, with understanding, and with forgiveness. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she stood in the middle of the kitchen, the letter still clutched in her hands. Her body was trembling, not from the cold, but from a fire that had ignited deep within her. Anger, betrayal, the weight of everything that had been hidden from her for years. She couldn't breathe. Why didn't you tell me? She demanded, her voice trembling with frustration. Why didn't you tell me then? You let me think I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't worth fighting for. You let me suffer in silence for years, and now you stand here telling me it was all for nothing? Luke stood across from her, his face etched with pain, eyes filled with remorse. But she couldn't bring herself to feel sorry for him, not right now, not after everything. You didn't give me a choice, she shouted, her voice rising. I loved you. I trusted you. And you let me walk away thinking it was my fault. You think that's fair? You think that was the right thing to do? Luke flinched, stepping back, but Emily's words were like a wave crashing over him, impossible to escape. I was trying to protect you, Emily, he said, his voice low but insistent. I thought I was doing the right thing. Your father, he was so certain that I wasn't good enough for you, that I was going to hold you back, ruin your future. I couldn't let that happen. I couldn't. You chose for me, Emily interrupted, her chest heaving. You let my father decide my future. You never gave me the chance to choose. The words hit him hard, and he closed his eyes, swallowing hard. I know, he murmured. I made a mistake. I didn't choose the right way, but I chose because I loved you. Emily recoiled, the pain in her chest twisting like a knot. You loved me? Is that what you call it? Letting me go without a fight, thinking you knew better than me? His eyes met hers, a mixture of sorrow and regret. I didn't choose the right way, but I chose for you because I thought you deserved better. You deserved a life outside of this town, outside of me. I wasn't enough, Emily. You were enough, she cried, tears welling in her eyes. You were everything to me. But you didn't trust me. You didn't believe in me. You let my father tell you what was best, instead of letting me choose my own path. Luke stepped forward, his face desperate. Emily, I never meant to hurt you. I swear, I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought letting you go would give you everything you deserved. But I see now. I see how wrong I was." She shook her head, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "You never even gave me the chance to decide. And now, you think telling me this is going to make everything better?" The room felt like it was closing in around her. She felt suffocated, trapped by the weight of everything she had discovered. Her mind spun with 1,000 thoughts, each one more painful than the last. The truth about her father's interference, the lies, the missed chances, all of it tangled together into a mess she wasn't sure she could untangle. "I need time," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I need to think. I need to figure out what I want." Luke nodded, his face pale with emotion. "I understand. Take all the time you need. But please know, I never stopped loving you." Emily's heart cracked at his words, but it wasn't enough to ease the ache inside. She had to get away, to clear her head. She needed space to breathe, to process everything that had just been laid bare. Without another word, she turned and walked out of the kitchen, the door slamming behind her as she stepped out into the cool evening air. The streets of Maplewood, so familiar and comforting, felt foreign now. Her feet carried her without purpose, her thoughts racing. She needed to go somewhere quiet, somewhere away from everything, somewhere that could give her clarity. And so, she made the decision. She drove to her mother's house, the place that had always been a sanctuary for her, a place where she could breathe without the weight of expectations bearing down on her. Her mother had always believed in her, always supported her. Emily needed that now more than ever. When she arrived, her mother greeted her with a warm embrace, her comforting presence a balm for the storm raging inside Emily's heart. "What's going on, sweetheart?" her mother asked, sensing the turmoil. "I don't know, Mom," Emily said, her voice breaking. "I don't know what to believe anymore." Her mother held her close. "You don't have to figure it out right now. Take your time. You've always known what's best for you. You'll find your way, sweetheart. You always do." In that moment, with her mother's arms around her, Emily knew she had to find her own path forward, one that wasn't defined by the decisions of others, but by the truth of her own heart. Weeks passed since the confrontation, and the knot in Emily's chest began to loosen, though not entirely. She had taken her time to sort through the whirlwind of emotions, the anger, the betrayal, and the lingering love. She'd gone to her mother's house, seeking refuge in the one person who had always believed in her. In those quiet moments, amidst her mother's comforting presence, Emily had come to a realization. She couldn't keep running. She had spent 12 years of her life running away from the past, running away from the memories that haunted her, from the pain that had never fully healed. But the truth was, she had never really left. Not in her heart. Maplewood, Luke, and everything that had been left unresolved had always remained with her. It wasn't the town that had held her back all these years, nor the man who had walked away from her. It was the fear of facing what could have been, what should have been. The fear of seeing the man she once loved, and realizing that he might not still be there. But now, after weeks of reflection, Emily knew the time had come to stop fearing the past. She had to face it head on, and in doing so, finally choose her own future. It was late afternoon when she returned to Maplewood, the town bustling with preparations for the annual fall festival. The crisp autumn air wrapped around her as she drove through the familiar streets, the colors of the leaves a vibrant blend of reds, yellows, and oranges. It was as if the entire town was alive with the warmth of the season, with lanterns being strung up in the town square, the scent of pumpkin spice wafting in the breeze. and the laughter of children running through the streets. Emily parked her car and stepped out, her heart racing just a little. She hadn't planned this moment. She hadn't planned to come back, let alone face Luke again. But here she was. She walked through the lively streets of the festival, her eyes scanning the crowd. She could hear the faint sound of music playing in the distance, and the rhythm of conversations and laughter filled the air. But in the midst of it all, her eyes found him. Luke was standing by a stand filled with carved pumpkins, talking to a few of the townspeople. He looked the same, yet different. The years had left their mark on him. There was a certain quietness in his demeanor now, a maturity that came with time and loss. But his eyes, those deep brown eyes, still held the same warmth, the same spark that she had fallen in love with so long ago. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Emily's breath caught in her throat as their eyes met across the crowd. She could feel her heart pounding, a mixture of excitement and nerves rushing through her. This was it. This was the moment she had been waiting for, whether she realized it or not. Without a second thought, she made her way toward him, weaving through the crowd with a sense of purpose. Luke turned slightly, sensing her approach, and as their gazes met again, there was no hesitation this time. She stopped in front of him, her heart racing with anticipation. He looked at her, his expression unreadable. But then, a soft smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. "I wasn't sure you'd come back," he said quietly, his voice full of uncertainty. "I wasn't sure either," Emily replied, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "But I've had time to think." Luke waited, the silence between them heavy with all that had been left unsaid. She took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "Luke," she began, her voice soft but clear, "I've spent 12 years running away from the past. I thought I could move on. I thought I could build a life without you. But the truth is..." She paused, her heart swelling with a mixture of fear and hope. "I just want a place I can call home. And if you still want to be a part of that, then I'd like to build that home with you." His eyes widened, and for a moment, he didn't say anything. He simply looked at her, as if trying to read the truth in her words. And then, slowly, he reached out, taking her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers with a gentle, reassuring grip. "I've always wanted that too," he said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. "I just never knew if you would still want me after everything." Emily shook her head, a smile breaking through her tears. "I want you. I always have." Without another word, Luke pulled her into an embrace, wrapping his arms around her, as the warm glow of the autumn lanterns flickered above them. For the first time in 12 years, Emily felt like she was truly home. The years of heartache, the missed opportunities, and the unresolved questions, all of it melted away in that moment. The past no longer had power over her. She had made her choice, and it was the right one. They stood there for what felt like an eternity, their hearts beating in unison as they held each other under the soft glow of the fall lanterns. This time, neither of them was going anywhere. And as the festival continued around them, Emily realized that she had finally come full circle. She had faced the past, and now, with Luke by her side, she was ready to create the future she had always wanted. Every love story is a journey of growth, heartache, and healing. Emily and Luke's story reminds us that sometimes the past holds us back, but facing it can lead to the future we've always wanted. Whether it's the courage to forgive, the strength to choose love, or simply finding a place to call home. Their story shows us that no matter how many years pass, love can always find its way back. What do you think? Can love truly heal the wounds of the past? Have you ever faced a moment where you had to choose between what was comfortable and what was right for you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this story and want more heartwarming tales of love, healing, and second chances, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Join me as we continue to explore the power of love and the beautiful journeys we all take. See you in the next story.